Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Here with your hosts, Jacob Smedley,
Sam Beth,
Justin Rihanna,
and Nathan Romanoff,
with today's special guest,
Aiden O'Brien.
Our topics today include Ja Morant, what's going on with him and the NBA, and when could he come back? March Madness mania is upon us. We're in the middle of the month. What's going on with everyone's brackets and the NFL free agency? Who's moving? Where's the new homes for a lot of the NFL stars? And a new segment. Now, here's Sam Betts. Sam, what is going on with Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies?
Well, unfortunately, Jake, it's nothing good. Ja Morant's been in the news recently. The 23-year-old point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies has been in some trouble lately, and it's been looking like it's going to hurt him in the long run here. We'll get to those details here, but we're just going to look at what's been going on, what actions has he been doing, kind of where he stands and where his credibility kind of lies now. So like I said, Ja Morant's been in some trouble, and it kind of started around January 29th when the Pacers visited the Grizzlies. I believe that the Pacers were, or some of the Pacers kind of staff were helping kind of load the bus up, the team bus, and some of Ja Morant's associates kind of came around in an SUV and were kind of like jawing at the employees, saying some stuff. And one of the employees reported that they looked like they saw a red laser. Now, that could have just been like a laser pointer, but they said that it was a gun. They said that the guys were flashing a gun around, kind of making some threats, and then drove off. So with these guys being associated with Ja Morant, the NBA kind of did like a small investigation. They didn't really have any conclusive evidence, but they didn't really find anyone. No one was kind of like charged or anything. So that was kind of swept under a little bit. Kind of like one of the first incidents is that kind of put his character kind of into jeopardy, but nothing major. Until on March 1st, it was reported in a couple news reports that over the summer, Ja Morant was at his home. He was playing in a pickup basketball game, and apparently he assaulted a 17-year-old boy, threatened him with a gun. That was reported, I believe, in The Athletic. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that was kind of one of the main news reports there. Apparently, Ja Morant responded, said that it was in self-defense, and I believe that in the report it was claimed as that too. They wrote that down as self-defense. There was also another incident over that last summer that Morant's mom got into a dispute with an employee at the finish line, and then Ja Morant and 9 other people came into the store, kind of caused a ruckus, apparently also threatened a security guard there as well. So a lot of this is just building up, a lot of very hasty decisions by Morant, and then it gets even worse. March 4th in the early morning at a nightclub, Ja Morant was partying, drinking with girls, stuff like that. And then on Instagram Live with millions of people watching it, he was flashing a gun. He flashed it around kind of flashing a gun with it pointed down, like the old style, like gangster type stuff like that. So that was kind of like one of the last kind of straws from like the NBA and the Grizzlies too. The Colorado police came in. They didn't file any charges against him, but initially the Grizzlies suspended him for 2 games, told him that they were going to be without Ja Morant for a while. Then later that day, Ja Morant and both the Grizzlies kind of came out with statements. Morant was saying that he takes full responsibility for it, but he said it also wasn't his gun either. So kind of some conflicting statements in there. The Grizzlies were like, we're going to be without Ja Morant, essentially. They eventually did bump up that suspension to 4 games, kind of just increasing it. Some more problems circulating around. On March 13th, it was reported that Morant entered counseling, said that he was going through some stuff. It's kind of like the traditional, like, an athlete kind of goes through something, says they're going through some things, like need some help, enter counseling. I feel like we see that with a lot of athletes. I'm not saying it's not justified or anything like that, but I feel like it's one of the stories that we see a lot of the times. Kind of just going through it. March 15th, the NBA, which is 3 days ago, as of recording of this episode, the NBA suspended Ja Morant for 8 games without pay, which is kind of jeopardizing his contract. I believe it was reported that Ja Morant could be losing around $39 million from his contract. He's signed a 5-year contract for $231 million with the Grizzlies, but that could, with not receiving any bonuses or anything like that, or reaching certain accolades, he could lose up to $39 million.
Yeah, I think I wanted to just kind of jump in because I did see a little bit of the interview that Morant did with Jalen Rose that was on ESPN, or I believe it was a clip regardless of it, just kind of talking about, Jalen Rose, talking about how he was kind of in that situation when he was in the league and went through, not exactly the same situation, but a very similar situation. And it also shows to light an overall theme of athletes that, sometimes it's, you glaze over maybe the person and the background and just see them as a superstar player rather than also a person and what they're going through in their own lives. And I think this is, one of those instances where, a heat check for Ja Morant to assess himself and realize that he is in the public sphere as not only a athlete, a superstar athlete, but just as a person, and be able that intersection that I think often gets lost from fans.
Yeah, I feel like we saw this also with like Ron Artest too with the Pacers. Ron Artest early in his career had a lot of mental problems as well, was getting counseling. I feel like it's not as bad as Ron Artest. Ron Artest acted out very aggressively at points. Was at one point going to leave the Pacers to start his music career, but I don't think that Ja Morant is at that point yet. But I feel like obviously that fame does cause some stress. It might cause people to act out. It's an unfortunate situation too, because Ja Morant is a young face of the NBA. Like, he's a young superstar that the NBA is trying to build around, trying to promote. I feel like a lot of athletes who are in that spotlight just get like heat check, like you said, heat checked. It's kind of like a snap back to reality point. Like, you are a face of this league, and when you act out, it not only damages your reputation, but the reputation of your teammates, the reputation of your organization, and the overall sport that you're kind of playing for. I feel like we've seen that with Fernando Tatis for the MLB too, with the PED issue. Obviously, he's going to make his return, and he's come out with his own statements, but I feel like it being in that spotlight does a lot for these players.
I totally agree, Sam, and will be definitely something to monitor, see how Morant handles the situation moving forward through those counseling and the actions the league takes. But from what it sounds like from him, he's taking responsibility for it, and hopefully, as a player, as a person, he comes out better on the other side of this.
I hope he does too. And also another thing too, not only is he going to lose money from his NBA contract, but Powerade, well, Coca-Cola specifically, the company, but they pulled his Powerade commercial. I think I've seen it once or twice, maybe like on YouTube, but they just recently pulled that. So he's going to be losing money from that. Not that they ended his contract. It wasn't reported that he ended his contract, but they did pull that from streaming services, TV, stuff like that. Nike actually came out with a statement kind of supporting him. So that's good that there's a company that's willing to stick by their athlete and kind of help him out. I don't necessarily know what they say, but it was just kind of in support of him trying to become better, taking charge of that. And I think that's what he needs too. He needs a couple allies. I'm sure his teammates aren't necessarily happy with him, but I'm sure that they're going to stick next to him. The Grizzlies are in a really pivotal spot to make a deep playoff run. Right now, they're second in the West at 42-27. So they're going to be missing him for a while for a couple of games, but I'm sure that when he comes back, he's going to be able to help lead this team into a deep playoff run, maybe even make it to like the Western Conference Finals. They could even make a push for the NBA finals if they like play well enough. I know Dylan Brooks has been getting hot.
Dylan Brooks, the technical foul machine.
Okay, yeah, there's that. But
Nah.
other than that, he's a pretty decent player. But they have a really good team around Ja Morant. So I think just when he comes back, it's just about kind of picking up the pieces, putting them back together, and just keep rolling with it.
Yeah, and I know you don't want to speculate, of course, any timetable for this situation, but I don't want to. I guess you kind of mentioned there that he might come back at the end of this season. Perhaps we'll see where everything is. I don't think that you should try again necessarily rush him back. Of course, the team's in position to do things, but I think we should. I think the focus should be on his long-term health, his long-term, productivity and image in the league. So as much as I would love Ja Morant, to recover quickly and go through those protocols and stuff, I don't think they should set a timetable and necessarily rush him back for the playoffs, if you will.
Yeah, and even if the Grizzlies kind of did really want him to come back, which I mean they've already suspended him for 8 games, so he's not coming back really soon-ish. But I definitely think that if he's going to take time away from the sport, then hopefully he just kind of works on himself, learns from his actions. I think that's probably one of the biggest things too, is just kind of like I think this is a kind of like a big eye-opening thing for him because he's had a lot of positive publicity in the past. I think with his like highlights, kind of just some other things around him too. And I'm sure,
Charity work, he's
yeah,
done
yeah,
a
a
great
lot of,
job giving
yeah,
back.
I was going to mention that a lot of charity work, but I think this is just kind of something that he just needs to learn from, take some time off. Hopefully comes back, and if not, just comes back ready for the next season or whenever he is ready to come back to basketball.
Yeah, I totally agree, and we'll monitor the situation and hope for a quick return for Ja Morant back, and as Sam mentioned, helping the Grizzlies as we approach the postseason in the NBA. Switching gears, the NFL season might be over. The champion was crowned, the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl champions, but right after that Sunday, free agency, the madness has taken place. A few guys moving, some darkness retreats involved, some guys signing different places. Justin, we're here to break it all down. What do you got for us?
Well, thank you, Jacob. Of course, this is one of the best
Justin's
times
out
of
of
the
his
year.
darkness retreat. He's out of his darkness retreat.
Yes, I am. It was a tough month of January and February, but now we're here in March. Back to getting a little bit more hopeful for our teams here as they start to pick up some of the free agents and some trades too, which is actually where I want to start. I want to start with a few of the blockbuster trades that occurred, starting with the Los Angeles Rams trading Jalen Ramsey to the Miami Dolphins for a third-round pick. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I think it's a great move by the Dolphins because they got Jalen Ramsey. That's still a top 10 corner. He might not be the best that he was, a couple years ago, but still a top 10 corner in the league. They got him for a third-round pick. A third-rounder.
Is the Bills fan getting nervous over there?
Well,
You getting nervous?
But I'm still waiting to see on what Tua's looking like, but for the time being, the Dolphins are looking pretty good because that's a good move. They got a really good guy for practically nothing.
It really did. That was like I woke up to that. Yeah, it was just the first thing I saw on my phone. I started laughing. Like I don't even care about the AFC East that much. I was like, you gotta be joking. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't even know what to say about that. That was one of the worst trades I've seen in a while. That is it. It was unbelievable. For Miami, it was great, obviously. Because now you got Holland, Howard, and Ramsey back there. That's scary, and the Rams are like, yay, we got a third-round pick that we're probably going to blow. I just don't know. I'm really interested to hear, like, the thought process from their front office on that. You can get so much more for Ramsey.
I think the main thing that I can think of for the Rams is just shedding that money. Again, they spent all that money for the Super Bowl appearance win. And now, again, I saw the rumors that they might try and get rid of Matt Stafford. You got Jalen Ramsey, who was earning all that money. Cooper Kupp is on a big contract. I don't know if they want to pay him just because of how young he is. But, yeah, that Rams team, they were at the pinnacle, and now it's the very quick decline to a rebuild, just the way they went about it.
Great move for the Dolphins, and Jake, as you said, the Rams, they were at that pinnacle. It's looking like maybe they're going to be preparing for a rebuild here. I don't know. I don't think that their team, you got Cooper Kupp, Stafford's getting old. Like you said, they might be looking to move on from him. I think you're looking at all right, we paid the price, we got our Super Bowl. Now it's time to, rebuild the team, basically. I think that's really what you're looking at here.
Get all those draft picks back.
Yeah.
Trade it away.
Yeah, honestly.
They could at least have looked for a draft pick next year too as well, but they did not. But of course, they're not the only team to make a trade here. The New York Giants traded their third round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders for Darren Waller, the tight end who a couple of years ago was the star of the league. Like, he was incredible, and not to say that he fell off. He was a little injured in the past, year or two, but I think it's a great trade for the Giants because that really gives Daniel Jones something to work with for the first time in his career. It really gives him a weapon that he can throw to and not just have to hand it off to Saquon and hope that he runs 100 yards for the touchdown.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they did have, kind of looking at the Giants in terms of wide receivers, tight ends, they had Ingram, who was good for that season, but then he tailed off. He kind of had a resurgence in Jacksonville, but really haven't had that strong tight end, which I think really helps a guy like Daniel Jones, who isn't one of those quarterbacks like a Rodgers, like a Mahomes, who's gonna chuck it 50, 60 yards downfield, to wide receivers, or not that type of guy. I think Waller is very good in the middle of the field and an exceptional red zone threat, which I think is going to be huge for this Giants team and taking that next step. They made the playoffs last season. Of course, they're not satisfied. I think the defense is going to get better, and offensively, you add a guy that, at his best is a Pro Bowl tight end, and you're talking about top 4 or 5 in the league when healthy. Adding weapons to that offense around Daniel Jones, who you gave that extension to. It's now time to give him the weapons to give him a chance.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was thinking that's why I actually kind of like the extension for Jones a lot, because if you're the Giants, like if he walks in there, you can't really say like, well, we gave you whatever when you needed to win. Like, and if he's definitely, I think he proves himself like in a big way this year. Because I'm a diehard Birds fan, but I've always kind of been high on Daniel Jones. I think Waller's going to take him to another level if he stays healthy, which seems to be like a constant concern.
Yeah, that is the big question with Waller in this move. Can he stay healthy? We hope he does. Giants fans, obviously, you want him to stay healthy and produce, hopefully get back to the levels he was, a couple of years ago, the numbers he was putting up. And like you said, Justin, given Daniel Jones, an actual target that has proven himself in the past, I think that's very important considering the extension they just gave him. And I think that if Waller can stay healthy, you're definitely going to see improvement in Daniel Jones's game.
The last I just want to mention for the trades, the Indianapolis Colts traded Stephon Gilmore to the Dallas Cowboys for a 5th rounder. That makes the Dallas Cowboys secondary a little bit better with Trayvon Diggs, and now they have Stephon Gilmore maybe to train him up. However, I'm not here to toot the Cowboys' horn, so we'll move on to the more of the significant signings of the free agency so far. And I want to mention right away the San Francisco 49ers signing defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, previously of the Philadelphia Eagles, to a 4-year deal. I think that's a fantastic move for them because their defense was already scary, but now to add a guy like Hargrave to the mix, like a sack machine, a guy that stops the run, that's going to be incredible for a defense that was already the best in the league.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, in the same coin, I think he's going to be missed in Philadelphia. Of course, they have other guys in there like Milton Williams, Fletcher Cox, who the Eagles just re-signed as well, who are going to fill that role. But you're talking about Hargrave, who really was knocking on the door to a Pro Bowl as well. Did he or did he not? I might be mistaken. But regardless, he is that difference maker, and a defensive line that has Nick Bosa at the top of his game as one of, if not the best guy out on the edge, and having Hargrave up front. As you mentioned, Justin, the rich get richer for the 49ers, a team making it to the NFC Championship game, falling short last season to Hargrave's former team, and taking one guy from them and really improving there. But I think the Eagles are also going to feel the loss of him, even with their depth at that position.
The Eagles, they're going to feel it a little bit. Hargrave, like you said, had a great year for the Eagles this year. Really produced on that defensive line. And, the Niners going out, signing him, like you said, Justin, just adds to an already great defense they have there in San Francisco. I think, the big question there is just going to be the quarterback situation with Brock Purdy, obviously being injured in that Eagles game. Trey Lance coming back off a major injury, what's it going to look like at the beginning of the season for them? Who's going to start? That's really where the big questions lie in San Francisco. But on the defensive side of the ball, yeah, they're staying solid and looking great.
Speaking of the defensive side of the ball, let's talk about the Chicago Bears signing linebacker Tremaine Edmunds of the Buffalo Bills to a 4-year, $72 million deal with $50 million guaranteed. Now, I'll tell you this much. As a Bills fan, I like Tremaine Edmunds, but I feel like it's a lot of money for, a guy like him who's, pretty much like a run stuffer.
Really? I've been seeing stuff where, Bills fans are upset. Well, other Bills fans other than you are, like, really upset to lose him. Like, well, they underpaid him in the same light.
I very much enjoyed watching Tremaine Edmunds play. He was fantastic for us. He did a lot of great things. But, I mean, he does have his struggles, like he was not great in pass coverage, but something that he was a little underrated in was the blitz. He was very good in the blitz, creating pressure towards the quarterback. So, I mean, I think that he'll be a great addition, but, I mean, to me, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that's where it starts with the Bears. And, of course, I know we'll save off-season winners for a different episode. We're in the midst of it. A lot still needs to happen. But right now, this team, talking about that Edmunds deal, that defense, when the Bears were at their best, most recently, their defense was a top 10, top 5 unit in the game. And if Edmunds is that part of it, of course they traded away Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn last season. They can get back to that. It doesn't even need to be top 10 level, top 15 level with the way their offense is developing, bringing in DJ Moore for Justin Fields. You expect them to spend some more money, especially on the offensive line, really are modeling that blueprint for a young quarterback with the weapons, with the offensive line. But building up the defense, just top 15 unit, top 12, I think that's achievable for this Bears team. And if they can do that, they'll be a threat again.
Yeah, definitely. I love the move, the Edmunds signing for the Bears. I think that, the Bears just overall have been, to be honest, killing it this offseason. Trading away the number 1 pick, and getting DJ Moore in a haul of picks added on to that. And you add, signing a guy like Edmunds, who, he's young. He's a young guy, and I think one of the best linebackers in the league, to be honest. So I think that's a great signing for them, and going to hurt the Bills' defense a little bit. But, I'm sure Justin would agree, they had decisions to make this offseason. With certain free agents, and they made those decisions, and you got to take what you can get. But for the Bears, who had money to spend, I think it was a good move.
Yeah, then moving over to the offensive side, I want to talk about one of my favorite NFL players. I think Nate, who I'm about to mention here, the New Orleans Saints signing Jamal Williams, the Kazakage of the Hidden Village of the Den himself. I think that's a great signing for the Saints, because really it just gives them another guy to help Alvin Kamara work. It gives him that goal line guy that's going to get into the end zone or get those tough 3 or 4 yards that you need to get a first down.
Definitely, dude. I love this signing as well. Jamal Williams, awesome dude in general. Just love watching his press conferences, where he's joking around with reporters, wearing his Pokemon hats. He's just the best. And like you said, he is a great rushing running back, down in the goal zone, end zone area. And I think that's really going to help alleviate some of that pressure from Alvin Kamara. And you're going to have, I think now New Orleans has a top 5 running back tandem in the league with Jamal Williams, in my opinion. And I just think that's another great move that New Orleans has made this offseason that's really going to bolster that offense.
And adding on to it, of course, the Derek Carr situation is a whole nother conversation in itself. Now going to New Orleans, when is Derek Carr? I mean, Josh Jacobs was good, but it was really the Josh Jacobs show. I think if him having 2 running backs down there, of course, their wide receiver situation with Michael Thomas and company still, a lot of question marks there, but yeah, like you guys said, I mean, the foundation is there, and with Kamara specifically benefiting from this, seeing what DeAndre Swift was able to do when you're able to stagger those running backs, 2 very productive running backs like that, I think the possibilities are endless, not only for the running backs, but for the new quarterback. That definitely helps Carr really get adjusted to the new offense, the new system, when you have guys, workhorses like that can, get your first downs, take over a drive if those two wanted to.
I also would like to mention then the Cincinnati Bengals signing offensive tackle Orlando Brown Jr. to a 4-year deal previously of the Kansas City Chiefs. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, free agent available. And the Cincinnati Bengals, an already great team, got him. And it's a great signing for them because Joe Burrow has been sacked more times than any quarterback in the last 2 years. He needs protection, and they're finally giving him some. And he could be even better because of that, because the past few years he's had 2.5, 3 seconds to throw the ball. So, maybe now he can actually get a little bit more time in the pocket and start making some even deeper plays than he's able to.
Yeah, don't let Joe Shiesty get no line now, man. Not let Joe Shiesty get no line. He's going to eat you alive. I mean, he's already a killer without it. I think that could be the most high-power offense in the league this year. Now Joe Burrow's got some protection. Did they throw more than anybody, the Bengals, the last season or two?
I think they were up there. They were up there, especially with Mixon being in and out the way that he was.
Yeah, and he got in trouble now, so they're really going to be slinging it this year. So that's probably the best signing there's been.
Yeah, and Brown moving from the almost AFC rival. Can we mark it down now? The Bengals and the Chiefs as, non-divisional rivals, if you will. Just the amount of times they've played in the playoffs and even in the regular season too. But, jumping ship from, not necessarily jumping ship, but you know what I'm saying, going to the rival that lost to you on the road to the Super Bowl, and how those matchups will transpire against your former teammates next year.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very interesting situation for them, because they're basically rivals. I'm gonna say it. They're rivals at this point.
They're rivals. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
because,
are.
I mean, because it's like every year they see each other or they're near each other in the standings, and one team wins, one team loses. It's it goes back and forth. So I'd say that it's going to be very interesting for him moving forward. The last one I just want to mention, you guys can mention any of ones you want that I haven't mentioned, of course, but I want to mention the New England Patriots signing tight end Mike Gesicki from the Miami Dolphins to a 1-year deal. I think that's a good signing for them. They've been spending a lot of money in free agency these past few years, trying to get back to greatness. And I think that for the first time, I can actually commend one of their moves, because I think that this is a good move, getting a solid tight end, former Penn Stater Mike Gesicki. We'll see what he does with whatever quarterback's thrown to him, whether it's Mac Jones or Zappy,
Yeah, and hey, they've got the gritty master Mike Gesicki and the TikTok man Juju Smith-Schuster in there. So hey, they're building up that offense. But in all honesty, yeah, I agree. It's a good move, and it's never bad to add weapons, especially with that uncertainty. Adding wide receiver that's going to add to the room, especially with the loss of Jacoby Myers to Las Vegas. And yeah, Gesicki, they tried to do the 2 tight end thing with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith when he was in there. We'll see how they implement Henry, who's still on that contract. They gave him last year, the year before, and Gesicki in there as well. But Gesicki staying in the AFC East, he must have liked it there. Must have liked the games, staying with the Pats. But yeah, it's a good move, and their offense. Building up their offense, they've always had a almost middle-of-the-pack defense that'll keep them in games, but that offense is just taking a dip, and now they're replenishing.
Gesicki, loved watching him in college at Penn State. Thought he was fantastic, and his production dropped off last year in Miami, mainly due to the fact that they were able to add Tyreek Hill to that offense, took away a lot of targets. He's a big target, and like you said, Jake, him and Juju coming in, that really bolsters that offense, gives whoever's at quarterback, Mac Jones or Zappy, gives them targets to throw to, and I think it's a good move that's gonna benefit that offense.
Yeah, I think one more that I just thought of, one more move. you know, there is a guy in Green Bay that may or may not have been, you know, talking, and I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And, you know, he just decided now you know, the whole list of demands, it's like they're going to become the New York Packers, and then he's like, oh, I'm going to play for them, but the trade hasn't even been made yet. Like I want to get your guys' thoughts on that, because I just can't stand it. He's just becoming this diva that wants these organizations to hand over the whole farm for him. Like, he's 40 years old. Like, come on now.
It's so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, like, you're not on the team. You can't tell them who to get. Just stay in Green Bay if you want Randall Cobb and your entire offense to come with you. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Also, imagine being Zach Wilson right now. You know how much that must suck? This dude, do you see the video of Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson? Like, yo, what's it gonna be like playing with Aaron? He's like, pass is gonna be precise. He's like, we're gonna be balling out on offense. Like you know, Zach Wilson saw that. That blows, man. That blows. That really sucks. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. I just don't like the dude.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair to call him out on his diva behaviors. That's what we want to label them as. And whether or not the list actually, you know, did come from Aaron, speculated. You can definitely see it, you know, based on his past behavior. From a Jets perspective, you need to make the move because I'm sorry, Zach Wilson's just not him. He's not good. It's been proven. I think that if that's what it takes, you know, signing Lazard, maybe signing Cobb, you do it because you need him. I think if you sign Aaron Rodgers, you are instantly in contention for the AFC East title this year. You have a young roster, great talent. You saw them last year, how much they improved. I think if you put a guy like Rodgers there, and he's actually committed, the important part, he's got to be committed, and I think they can contend for that AFC East title and potentially win that division.
I mean, a lot has been said. Obviously, I didn't mention it because nothing has happened yet. But
Yes,
you know,
nothing has happened yet.
Of course, it's all, you know.
it's all speculation. But I don't think it's a great move for the Jets because the guy's 49. He's going to be 40 years old this year. I mean, he's 39 years old, and I mean, they get him for what? They get him for 2 years, if that. He's not as good as he used to be. I mean, obviously not. He's still a good quarterback, but he's not, you know, the Aaron Rodgers of old that could, you know, bring you into any game and win it.
He was the MVP 2 years ago, Justin.
That was 2 years ago. That's what I'm saying.
I think last year he didn't want to be in Green Bay.
Even if you didn't, you still have to play like your best, and I think that behavior is going to come with him, you know, wherever he goes, even if he stays in Green Bay. I just don't see him working out for the Jets the way that they think he will. However, I don't think that he would be bad if he played for the Jets. I don't see the Jets having the level of success that everybody thinks they will if he joins them.
That's fair. I'm just saying they have to get a new quarterback in there. And they waited so long. Derek Carr, Garoppolo are off the table. If you don't go for Rodgers, who else are you going to go for? You know, Lamar, there's the whole Lamar situation, but you'd have to give up a lot for Lamar, let's be honest. More for Lamar than you're going to have to give up for Rodgers, I think. So I think Rodgers is the right move at this time for the Jets because they need a quarterback.
A lot of speculation with Rodgers. A lot of other free agents that we didn't even mention already moving stops and new homes set to make a very exciting 2023-2024 season. We'll have more off-season coverage on the way. But, guys, it is March. And you know what's in March? It's stress from college. No, it is March Madness, where brackets are busted and 16 seeds ruin everything, even though I had it this year. I had it. We'll get into it. March Madness, guys. How are our brackets looking? Who did you all pick to win? I know we all make a bunch of brackets, but what's going on?
Jake, my bracket's actually doing somewhat decently. I'm very surprised because when it's on, I'll watch college basketball, but I don't usually follow it too much. But, you know, I always like participating in March Madness, kind of picking and see who's going to do what. Some of my picks were actually pretty good. I actually had FAU over Memphis, which was surprising. I was watching the end of that game. They made a shot right at the end to take that with only like 0.4 seconds left or so. FAU pulled that one out, which was perfect for me. I actually had Pitt over Iowa State, which I know some of the guys were doing an interview, and Barack Obama had them going pretty far and actually beating Iowa State. So matching with the former president of the United States. That's kind of cool. Some of the players
You're
were
so
actually very
proud, Sam. I'm
surprised.
so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Fortunately, some of my other picks didn't go too well. I picked Penn State to lose, even though I was watching that game, and Penn State played amazing.
Lights
actually.
out.
That's what
Light
you get. For,
I know
out.
that is
that's
what
what
I
you get
get.
for
I
not
know,
picking us.
I know that's what I get. But they played really well. Andrew Funk and Jalen Pickett for that Penn State team played amazing. Andrew Funk especially. I believe he went like 8 for 10 from the 3-point line. He had I think he had 27 points. Jalen Pickett with 19. His game's a little unorthodox, but he makes some crazy shots. He's a really good player. But that was a really thrilling game to watch. I picked Kennesaw State over Xavier, and it looked like that was going to happen. It was very close, but they went on a drive where they didn't score, where Xavier scored 20 points in about 5 minutes. Kennesaw State tried to keep it close. They were down 1 right toward the end, and then unfortunately, I believe their point guard went up for a layup. It got blocked, and then they fouled. Xavier scored 2 points, and then on the inbound pass with a couple seconds left, the Kennesaw State player actually caught the ball and ran out of bounds, which ended that game. So that was very unfortunate. But call other picks that actually went my way. Obviously, St. Mary's over VCU. I know a lot of people who I know have had them losing. Michigan State over USC. But yeah, I mean it's thrilling to watch. It's thrilling to watch, especially anything can happen in March. And there were definitely some games that we saw that a lot of people didn't predict.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. I mean, not to brag at all, but I did pick FDU over Purdue. I was going out on a limb. I was like, something crazy is gonna happen. I got so many upset points for it. But yeah, it's been wild, and I was high on the Cyclones. I thought the Cyclones were gonna win a few games in there. Iowa State. They fell to Pitt, and they felt bad, but some of these close games, just nothing like March Madness being back, and so many different storylines going on. But hey, my bracket's busted. My Final Four is still intact. I have 3 different winners in 3 different brackets: UCLA, Marquette, and Houston. Please don't let me down, all right? As long as I get a champion right. One of them. That's all that's left for me.
My Final Four is also intact. I have Alabama, Marquette, Houston, and Gonzaga for my Final Four.
Really, Sam? Really? The Zags? That is where you are wrong. No, I like UCLA. I think UCLA has it. I think the Bruins have it this year.
They're a decent team. I mean, I've liked Gonzaga just because seeing them in the last couple tournaments, they performed really well. Obviously, losing, it was either last year or 2 years ago that they lost to Baylor.
2 years ago, Baylor.
It was 2 years ago they lost to Baylor in the finals.
My only hesitation with Gonzaga is, yes, they performed well, but they've kind of, to me, been the letdown, They were supposed to win last year. The year before, again, favorites. Of course, they made it to the final, but then Baylor blew them out the water. Last year with Chet, and Timmy, dynamic duo, didn't work out, Arkansas downed them. I don't think that this is the year that they're going to win it, personally. I don't see it happening. I'm with you there, Jake. None of my brackets, though, are doing that great, to be honest. I'd say, though, my most common champion, I had Alabama and Houston. I did a couple brackets with each of those teams winning. I think that Alabama has the best player in college basketball in Brandon Miller. He just is. I think that he's easily the best player in the tournament. I know he didn't score in their first game, but look, he didn't need to. They still put up 96 points. I just think that Bama's going to definitely be in that Final Four, in my opinion, and I could see them winning it, which is kind of crazy considering, they're a football school, and now look how well their basketball team's been doing as of recently.
That's crazy. That's great. I agree. They're up there. I think that they can make a Final Four and definitely win it all, like you said, Nate. Guys, new segment. The drama, of course, for us with the Zoom recording ending, but it is the Hot Topic segment, newly added. Nate, credit to you on the great creative thinking behind this. But each week, moving forward, we're going to have a topic that we're going to, for a few minutes, all of us go around, talk about, discuss as a group, back and forth, argumentative, This is where the money is made, gentlemen. The question this week is World Baseball Classic. I know all of you aren't necessarily well versed in it, but most recently there has been conversations in light of the injury to Mets superstar closer Edwin Diaz, celebrating after the Puerto Rico win that sent them to the quarterfinals, semifinals, regardless, in the World Baseball Classic. And how important is the World Baseball Classic? The argument of a tournament, exhibition tournament, or the meaning. Guys, your thoughts?
Maybe in like the grand scheme of things, if you relate it to the MLB, it maybe isn't as important. Obviously, it's good publicity because you have a lot of your players playing in that tournament, but for maybe it might not be important in the grand scheme of things to MLB. But for those individual players to be representing their countries, to be playing for the people, to have the people behind you I think that's so important for those players to be able to do that. It's such a act of patriotism for all countries, just for these players to like be a part of them. I mean, you saw like the Czech Republic. They had modern day people, school teachers. They even won a game against China, I believe. So I mean, for them to like go out and do that
Struck
for their
out
country.
Shohei Ohtani. The one pitcher did. He struck him out.
The one player also from the Czech Republic got hit by Shohei Ohtani by a pitcher. And I think Shohei Ohtani also like gave him like a little present and stuff. But like stuff like that, like that's important. Like that's important to those people. Now, obviously, with the Edwin Diaz incident, I believe he did something to his patellar tendon, and he unfortunately had to be carried off the field. Obviously, that's a very big hit to the Mets. He might be out for the entire 2023 season. But even Francisco Lindor, who was on the Mets, who was teammates for the Puerto Rican team with Edwin Diaz, said that it is so important for them that they play these games for their country. Obviously, injuries happen. I know for the Phillies, Garrett Stubbs had some knee issues being the catcher for the Israel team. Ranger Suarez had to unfortunately withdraw from the tournament from the Venezuelan team due to some forearm stiffness. It's tough. Like the Phillies ourselves, we have a lot of star players. Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber playing for the U.S. team. I saw Jose Alvarado, I believe, is also playing for the Venezuelan team as well. But like, so obviously those star players, they're putting their health on the line. That's the same thing with spring training or anything like that. But for them to go out and play these games for their country, I think is so important. And I think that is one of the best things about the World Baseball Classic. So should they be played? I think they definitely should be played. Great publicity, spreading baseball between different countries, just everyone, people coming together to watch the favorite players play, and just the patriotism of it all.
Yeah, Sam, I agree with you, and another part of it is the representation. I the whole statistics of like 43% of households in, I believe it was Cuba, Puerto Rico, tuning in to that matchup, to these matchups. Most of the households are watching these games in these countries, and I think it's that whole take. It's just these, American sports fans that just, care about their set of 2, 3, 4 teams, and that's it. But for other people around the world, as you mentioned, Sam, this is representing an entire country of people that this is their sport, and maybe 1, 2 other sports, maybe soccer too in Venezuela, but baseball is really it.
Jake, if I can interject, would you, as you're more into this, you and Sam, would you like kind of equate this to like the World Cup of baseball in a sense?
Yes,
is it?
It is? I would. I know, of course, there is the difference between maybe the World Cup being like that highest level of
but in terms of baseball.
Yes, in terms of baseball, of course. And, just like the World Cup where you see the superstars, like Sam was saying, on the biggest stage. You see these stacked fantasy team list of guys. Some of them like the Dominican Republic this year don't pan out. But that's the fun of the game, and you have guys competing, and the Venezuelan team coming out of nowhere, they're undefeated, playing the United States tonight. Of course, our viewers, our listeners will know the decision of that game coming forward, but you got these fun, stacked teams. They wear their countries, their flag, the jerseys are sick. Just the environment, watching these games and all of the people that you don't even replicate regular season and even postseason. You don't get that same atmosphere that I understand coming from the players.
It was also kind of cool to see like different players kind of playing for different teams. Obviously, like I said, Garrett Stubbs and Jock Pearson playing for Team Israel, who I've seen play before they went to the Olympics. Getting to see those players play was really cool. I've gotten to see Lars Nootbaar playing for Team Japan was like a really cool instance. Or Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tommy Edman of the St. Louis Cardinals, also the St. Louis Cardinals, played for Korea, if I'm correct. So just kind of having those players go on to different teams and representing those countries and kind of like a different and kind of like a fun way too, just to kind of get like some MLB presence on different teams as well.
Like I didn't know that Didi Gregorius or Xavier Bogaerts were playing for the Netherlands until I like checked, on ESPN. I was like, oh, those guys are playing for them. But I want to take a different spin on this just to ask you guys, because this is taking place obviously during spring training right before the MLB season. Do you think that it's the smartest thing, at least like from a team perspective? Do you want your stars going and competing in this really? Because it is, I think, at least from what I've seen, it's a higher level of baseball than spring training, which has its benefits but also has potentially its downsides, considering some of these guys haven't played, for quite a few months. To be playing such a high level of baseball, right now, right before the season starts. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think personally, I think it is the player's choice. And for teams to interject, I know that there are concerns, and I think that has been a big discussion with it as well. The timing, I think that's one of the biggest factors, having it right before the season instead of maybe after the season, where you have that kind of time maybe to keep their body moving. But I think too, you have that factor in of it's getting them ready for high performance during the regular season. And because spring training, yes, there's those elements of real-time game. Guys are playing 3-4 innings. They're taking them out. They're letting them kind of rest and go through different routines there. Whereas here, you're thrown right into a world tournament where, like you said, the games are
they're meaningful.
Win or go home.
Yeah.
And you're playing for the pride of your country, and thousands of millions of fans that are on your team. So I think it's beneficial that it's there. So getting them ready for the regular season, like wow, the Dominican team lost. I'm going to use them for an example. And there was the whole, well, if they would have done this in like the middle of the season, they probably would have wiped the floor because all those guys would have been in middle season form, if you will. But I still think those guys are going to have, monster seasons now in Major League Baseball because they saw this pitching, this really good pitching in the World Baseball Classic, and, can take that into the season.
And also, like, another thing, too, as a professional athlete, you're not just, like, sitting down and doing nothing. Like, you're still trained, like, even after the season's over, you're still training. You might obviously not be training to the certain level that you do train during the season, but, I mean, you're still putting in work, you're still making gains, you're still taking at-bat, you're still maybe taking simulated at-bats, you're still working. And I think this is just a great way, like Jake said, just to get ready for the season. Spring training is also going to have its injuries too. In fact, another Mets player, Brandon Nimmo, was playing in a spring training game, slid into second base, and got injured. Now, I don't know the extent of his injury. I haven't seen any reports on it yet. I'm sure there are reports, but there's always opportunities for people to get injured. I think this is one of the best ways for players just to get active, to kind of get into an in-game scenario where you are playing for do or die, like winner goes home. Like, I think this is the best way to kind of prepare for the season. And I mean, like, some of the players have been performing exceptionally well. I know Randy Arozarena for Mexico. I mean, he's been on fire lately for that Mexico team. So I think it's a really good way to get prepared for the season.
Quick prediction, though. Who do you think's going to win?
Oh, prediction.
Oh, hot take! Another hot take.
Hot take, give it
Well,
to me.
the game will be played probably the night that this episode is released, so the final will be occurring. But as of now, Samurai Japan, I think, is the best team on paper. I love the U.S. Go USA. But I just don't think they have the pitching to compete with the all-around talent. Japan with Masataka Yoshida, Otani, Nootbaar. They have a few really good pitchers that are going to probably come to the major leagues real soon as well. I think they're the best team.
Jake, I would agree with you. Japan has always been a very baseball dominant sport, whether it be in the Little League World Series, especially now in the World Baseball Classic. They have a lot of good pitching. Obviously Shohei Ohtani leading that team as well. But I'm going with Team Mexico, and this is a wild card pick. But I am going with Team Mexico. I think this team has some fire, especially after beating the Puerto Rican team. You have Isaac Paredes, who's been playing really well. He's part of the Tampa Bay Rays organization. You have Randy Arozarena as well, Luis Urias. You have a lot of really good pitching on that team too. I think they make a sneaky way to the finals, and I think they take it.
And neither one of us mentioned the other undefeated team, Venezuela, who they've been beat the Dominican Republic. They swept their pool, one of two teams, Japan and Venezuela, to go 4-0.
Here's my take, Jake. Listen, I'm going America just because, pure fact, I got to go with them. But if Venezuela wins tonight, I'm taking them to win the whole thing.
There we go. The picks are in. World Baseball Classic would be tonight, if this is uploaded on Tuesday, for the World Baseball Classic. The final, we're in the semis right now, but should be a great conclusion before the MLB season starts in a few weeks. That will do it for this jam-packed episode of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. As always, from the entire crew, thank you for listening. For future episodes of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast can be found right here on YouTube, also on Spotify as well. Keep it locked in on all the platforms. And again, thank you, Anchor, for once again sponsoring this episode of the Lunch Hour Sports Podcast. Again, everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.